Hi, it's Joe Mullen, aka Captain Gizmo from Kayaking the Buzzards Bay Area. I found the chart I took with me for my Casco Bay trip with my kayaking buddy John. You can't really see it that well, but down here is Herman Island. It's connected to the mainland. You can get there by going down through Bath. Um, that was our base camp. We stayed there Friday night. Friday we kind of kayaked around the island a little bit. And then we got up Saturday morning, had breakfast, packed our kayaks, and the green line is the path we took to get to an island called Raspberry Island, which is way up over here. On the other, it's on the other side of Yarmouth Island, actually. Um, it's off the chart, but our plan was for the next day is to go over to Bailey Island. Sorry, I'm not good with cameras. To go over Bailey Island, which is actually over here, for lunch. We never made it. We tried going farther up the river to Little Snow Island, which is up in here somewhere. Never made that either. We went back to Raspberry Island, packed our gear, and decided to come back. If you can see the pink line that's on here, the pink line was actually the route we did going back. And as you can see, the line just likes to jut right across Casco Bay there. There we go. Um, that's because when we got to this point, we couldn't turn to go up into Cundy Harbor and try to get a ride back from there. And then somewhere out in this area is where the seas got so bad that we were wound up in 14-foot swells. And we were in those swells all the way over to here, where we finally found safe harbor and found somebody to give John a ride back to his car while I stayed with the kayaks, and then he came back and picked me up. So the thing is as I was saying in an earlier video, is it's good to have charts to plot out the whole course. I actually had coordinates and times and marks for this whole course in the green. Where I was saying is you have to watch. You plot all this out. You can figure out times and everything off a chart. There's some good YouTube videos out there for learning how to navigate using charts and things you want to have that are good to have. You can get it open. Shut up, dog. What I have is a kit, pair of dividers. I use those. And then the other ones I use are these for making a fast measurement. And then there's a way on the chart that you can actually figure out time, or approximate time. It's not going to be super accurate. And then another good thing is have a set. Have a ruler, a protractor, and a couple of triangles to help you out. If you want to get real fancy, you can get what they call a rolling scale or a split scale, where the things go up like this, and you can go across the chart. I find those to work pretty good. Another long ruler helps on a big chart because my Casco Bay chart wasn't as small as the oops. Actually, there they are. There's all my plots and everything that I was figuring out. And this is a size. This is as you can see, that's half the size of the chart. And I had to fold it up so I could get down to the bay that we were going on. So from here out to the other side here was a course we were taking. So the thing is you know, the marine radio comes in handy because we were listening to the weather report. Unfortunately, sometimes those reports aren't all that accurate, um, because the day we decided to run back to the mainland, the report for that day was 2 to 3 foot seas and up to a 10-mile-an-hour wind. Now, 10-mile-an-hour wind in certain directions isn't bad. I mean, chopped up the water a little bit, but most of the chop that we were in was relatively like 1 to 2 feet, so we weren't all that concerned. But then we noticed as we were trying to get to, when we were going to go over to this other island where the restaurant was, where we were going to have lunch, there was a 2 mile open water stretch that we had a kayak across. And when we came down to what, if you want to look on a chart of Casco Bay, there's, I think it was Haskell Island. At the end of Haskell Island, it's called Gun Point. At Gun Point, we had come down along the island there, down to Gun Point. We turned and we could see where we wanted to go. And it was 2 miles open water, but the water had now gotten up to like 2 to 3 feet instead of 1 to 2 feet. So we're sitting there going, we're on vacation. Do we really want to work that hard to go eat lunch and come back? And the wind was starting to pick up a little bit more, so we decided, no, we'll turn around and go back upriver, and we'll go check out Little Snow Island, because that was our alternative campsite if somebody was on Raspberry Island. And how did we find out about these islands? Both of us are members of the Main Island Trail Association, and they give you a book that tells you all about all the islands you can camp on and a little bit about the island. There's the Main Island Trail Association. That's how we found out about it. And Raspberry was an island just big enough for 4 people to camp on. We weren't sure how they figured 4, because we could only find enough flat spot in the clearing that we figured was a camp for 2 people, or at least two-man tents. And on the way back upriver, my buddy John didn't wear a skirt on a sea kayak, and a lobster boat came in, coming at, because I guess it was rougher farther out in Casco Bay. He was coming back to port at a pretty good clip, created some 6-foot wakes. I happened to look over my shoulder and see him coming. I had a chance to turn to go up and over him, and I'm yelling at John to go 30 right, 30 right, and he didn't quite hear me in time, and the first one set him up like this, and when he came down, the second one hit him, went right over the back of his kayak and flooded his cockpit. At that point, he was screaming, "Help!" I had to turn and come in and sit there and glide up alongside of him. Actually, if you watch the video, you'll see me gliding up alongside of his. Had to reach over and grab his deck lines and get a good grip, get his paddle and my paddle to kind of like brace across the 2 kayaks to steady his enough so he could pump it out. Then continuing on up the river, we ran into a family that was out kayaking, heading home. And talking with them, the husband, a really nice gentleman, decided that he would take us most of the way to Little Snow, at least to get us far enough along where you could go, that's it right there. And we thanked him very much for it. That was really nice of him. And we started heading for Little Snow, and we came across this really, really small island that had a automatic weather station on it. So we pulled in there to get a drink and to have some snacks and listen to the marine forecast. And at that point, we decided the marine forecast that they were given for that day was not what we were going through, but the marine forecast for the following day seemed to be more like what we were heading into. It was at that point we made the decision to go back to Raspberry Island, break camp, pack the kayaks, and take off for the mainland, or back to base camp. And when you're in a situation like that, it's good to have multiple plans. You have your initial plan, which was follow the same course that we came out on. And because the conditions were getting worse and worse, part of that plan was it's going to take us quite a while. So find every duck and cover, as I call them, cove, hide behind another little island, anything to get you out of that condition where you can sit there and take a rest and rehydrate and, rethink of what you're doing and, reassess the situation. And do you want to go to plan B? Do you want to go to plan C? Do you want to go to plan D? Whatever your plans are, or just scrub all the other plans and make a whole new one based on the conditions you're getting into. We kept doing a couple of duck and covers. And the last one we did, we come around this island and found this really nice cove. It was like flat water in there, unbelievable. We went way up to this beach, sat there and had something to eat, and sat there, took out the charts, trying to figure out, we knew where we were, figured out what our game plan was to keep going. We used this island as cover as we left this cove because everything was coming from this side. So we went down the back side of the island, which kept us in pretty calm water. I mean, it wasn't flat. It was about 2 feet, sometimes 3. And we used that. And our ideal plan would have been at that point, because we were now converting over to plan B, was we should have come out from behind that island, gone around this little spit, and made a left turn into the river and gone up about, paddled up about 2 miles. There was a place called Cundy's Harbor. And we were going to go in there and just find a place to beach and find somebody to give John a ride back to his car. However, coming out from around that island, we were now in 7-8 foot seas. And being from around the Buzzards Bay area, John and I have been in water that's been 4 and 5 feet. So the 7 and 8 foot wasn't a concern to us because it was something that we figured we could handle. We were doing pretty good. We were hitting the waves at like a 10 to 30 degree angle, so we're not hitting them bow on. You're hitting them at an angle so you can glide up and over. And you're going at an angle to them, so it's like up and over, and you're still making headway towards the direction you want to go in. And the frequency of the waves were so quick. It was like between 4 and 7 seconds, the next one was there, and the next one was there, and the next one was there. And it was to the point that as you're going up at an angle, you really couldn't turn to come back down, and we really didn't want to go up this river in a following sea because you really want to know what you're dealing with, and you can't paddle looking over your shoulder the whole time, especially with the frequency these things were coming in. So we could see the mainland across the bay, and we figured if it stays at 7-8 feet, we're fine. We'll get there. It's going to be some work, but we're both calm. We both kept our heads. We just sit there, slow rhythmic paddle. It kept a forward speed. We're averaging between 3 and 4 miles an hour, even with that slow rhythmic paddle. But the thing is you don't want to panic and break out into a mad dash, because when you're that low in the water and you're looking at land way off in the distance, it's not as close as you think it is. So if you try to do a mad dash, you're going to burn yourself out and you're going to wind up in a worse situation. So the thing to do is just keep your calm. We weren't taking on water. We were going up and over real fine. And we could just keep going. So we're focused on the landmass in front of us. We both had a spot and we're just lined up with that spot and off we go. At the point that we realized now it's even getting worse, and we're up about 9-10 feet. I'm 1/4 Cherokee, so I have this thing where I talk to my ancestors, and I ask my ancestors for guidance and help, and I have these things that I call my spirit guides, and I have one that John says I have one that will, for some reason, will not let me die for any reason. So I'm kind of like talking to my spirit guides, and I was talking a little bit out loud. John decided to talk to the great architect of this whole universe. Everybody else calls him God. And we're asking for a little assistance because, you know, things are getting worse, and we're out in the middle of Casco Bay. So we just kept going. I was just focused and just kept paddling. It was at the point where I'm looking at land, and all of a sudden I'm starting to climb this wave, and I realized I'm no longer looking at land. I'm looking at the sky. Now, I didn't raise my head. I'm still sitting there like this, looking straight ahead, but now I'm looking at the sky. And at that point, I looked at the top of the swell, and my bow's right there. And then I turned and I glanced over my left shoulder to look at the stern of the kayak, and the stern of the kayak is right there at the trough. So, like, here's the swell, and here's the back of my kayak, like right at the bottom of the swell. And anybody can tell you that's 14, my kayak's 14 feet. And if my bow is at the top of the swell and my stern is just at the trough, that's 14 feet. So I kind of like, whoa, paddled up over that one, went down the backside of that one. And of course, like I said, they're coming in frequently. I looked over to see if John realized what we were into, because he's right off to my right. And he's focused on paddling. So as I'm climbing up the next one, I get about 3/4 of the way up. I holler over to John and says, "Hey, I feel like one of those boats in the movie The Perfect Storm." And he looks over and like, "Oh my God," you know. I said, "Don't panic. We're still making headway. I'm tracking us, you know, by land points, and we are still making headway. We need to get over there." So after 2.5 hours of paddling, we're over to the mainland. It's starting to take a toll. I mean, you know, neither John and I are really young people. I wouldn't say I'm in the greatest shape, but I do have this reserve energy I can call on to keep going. Stamina, as I call it. And we thought we saw a safe harbor that we could duck into. John was off to my right, which puts him farther out from shore than I am. So I peel off and I says, "You stay out here. I'll go check it out." And as I turn to start going in, now I'm getting sucked into this cove. And when I look in the cove, there's just massive boulders all through the entrance of this thing. And I just turned and started paddling as hard as I could to get back out by where John was. And John's asked me, "Do I turn?" I'm going, "No, keep going straight. Keep going straight. I'll get up to you. Just keep going." And so I'm paddling even harder. I went from low angle to high angle to get more power and speed and get myself away from that thing. Because if I would have gone in there, or both of us would have gone in there, we would have been like a ball on a bumper pool table. And I wasn't ready to go through that hassle. So as I get back out to John and we're sitting there and we keep going, I look up, I see this powerboat come out. And I said to John, I said, "Where did he just come from?" And he goes, "Looked like it came out of there." And I said, "Well, let's get up there and see if we can find out where he just came from." And as we get up there, we notice it's a good entrance. It's a wide entrance into the harbor. And the harbor actually goes in both directions once you get past the rocks at the entrance. And when we got close enough, we could see this building was way up in the air. I mean, the pier was like what kind of boat is going in there? Um, but we decided that was a safe harbor, and I cut in a little too early. And again, the swells are pushing me towards the rocks, and it's like, nah, that ain't happening. I turned, started cutting back out again, and just kind of like, um, my kayak's 28 inches wide, so I can go sideways, and I can ride up and over the swells sideways. So, like the swells coming at me like this, my kayak will just go like that and go up and over sideways. So I'm paddling uh, parallel to the swells and getting headway to where I want to a better place I want to be. And when I got a little over halfway across the entrance of this thing, I called to John and said, I'm turning, I'm coming in. So I turned, started coming in. I look back, he's still paddling. I'm like, where's he going? So I asked him what he was doing. He says he didn't feel comfortable making the turn. He didn't want to come in with a following sea directly on the backside of his kayak. And I could understand that, based on getting hit by the wakes from that lobster boat being dead on the back end of his kayak. And he's loaded with about 80 pounds of gear, and I'm loaded with about 70 pounds of gear. So both of us are sitting kind of low in the water. And he wasn't in the mood to roll either. So I slowed down my paddling, and he went out a little farther. Then, like, he caught this swell perfectly, because he turned at a slight angle, and the swell come up on him, and then he was allowed to turn and then go back 30 degrees to the swell in the other direction. So it wasn't hitting him head on, but he was pointed in a direction where he could control his kayak. And once the two of us got past those big rocks where the entrance was, things calmed right down. So we spotted a beach and went right over to the beach. Found this woman to give him a ride back to his car. It took like 3 minutes. And he came back and picked us up. So the two of us made it through this adventure, as we like to call it. And we're still here to talk about it. But the thing is so why am I telling you this? The thing is the reason I'm telling you this is because when you're out there and you're doing these things like kayak camping, or you're going island hopping, or whatever you're doing, you have to be familiar with the area. We had talked to a number of people that were from the area that could tell us about what conditions we might see and what conditions we could expect. So it wasn't that we were going into this totally blind. We had, information. I did a lot of research on which direction to go in, how we're going to paddle over there, as you can see by the green line. And then the pink line I drew afterwards, because I didn't have time to mark anything up. And we just kind of basically knew going out which way we were going back, until we got to that one point and then went straight across. The one thing I did realize when you're out there in 14-foot swells that are coming at you like every 4 to 7 seconds is a marine radio isn't doing a whole lot of good. For the main reason is you don't have time to let go of the paddle to take the radio out and call for help. The other thing is I had in an earlier video, I wear a personal location beacon, and I could have flipped the antenna up and hit the button and just kept paddling and then hope the signal went out and that somebody could come and find us before it was too late. But the personal location beacon, as they tell you, is your very, very, very last resort. And the fact that we kept going forward and we weren't taking on water and we hadn't rolled over and all that told me that we weren't at a level of last resort where I had to activate the beacon. The other problem with that beacon is it's registered just to me. There's no way of telling the beacon to tell the rescuers how many people are with me. It's just me and John. So they would come after me, but if John got rescued, that'd be a secondary because he happened to be there with me. So it may be more beneficial if more than one person in your party had one. So if you really got in trouble, they'd have multiple signals, and they'd kind of get an idea that there's more than one person out there, so they can send them, the appropriate number of search vessels out there and rescue vessels. What else I want to say about that? The fact that we had charts, the fact that both of us were running compasses, the fact that both of us knew how to, at times, change your paddle angle, which is very important to know. I mean, I've got a bad lower back, so I can't do the twist like this. So all mine is like, as John calls me, a gorilla paddler. All my paddling is done across here. It's all done up here. So by doing that, because I don't want to tear up my rotator cuffs, I use a low angle paddle, which means I'm not going like this. I'm doing like this. So it's called low angle. The thing is your blades don't go in the water that deep. So it's only effective up to about a 4-foot swell. Once you hit a 4-foot swell, your angle of attack has to start getting greater and greater and greater. Climbing 14-foot swells, you're now almost into a high angle paddle situation, where now your blade, instead of skimming the water this way, now you're digging in and pushing more water along your kayak. Your blades come from out by the sides and get closer and closer to the sides of your kayak. So the thing is now you're not pushing the water out here, you're pushing the water actually right next to your boat, and you've got to kind of like reach forward and then pull back. The thing you have to be careful of is you don't go too far back behind your shoulder, because one, that'll fatigue your shoulder for one thing, and the other thing is you'll start tearing some muscles up there. You don't want to be tearing in that situation. So the thing is practice different paddling techniques. If you're like me and you like to use a low angle, every once in a while go to a little higher angle, until you, at some point, like if I really needed power, I'll go to a full, almost straight up and down paddle, and extend out and bring it back. I don't like to keep that type of paddling for long. I'll sit there and start like I'll go from like this and I'll start dropping that back around again. And so that's how that's how you can handle the differences in the water. So I hope you get a lot out of this video. It's went a little bit lengthier than kind of like expected, but I wanted to make a lot of points. I have a 44-inch light pole. It's expandable from about 24 to about 44. I had the thing fully up, and there's a light on top, and I had that light on, which is visible for 2 nautical miles. So we weren't visible all. When you're down here, you're not visible. When you get up to the top, all of a sudden you got 2 kayaks breaking over the top of the swell. But I've got a light that's 44 inches up that's visible for 2 nautical miles. So when we come up on the top, if there was another boat out there heading towards us, all of a sudden this guy would see a light, and then it would disappear, and then he'd see a light, and he'd be over there going, "What is in front of me?" And he could make appropriate, move off to the side and go around us or something, because as he approached us, he would have seen us, the 2 of us. My kayak's like a bright orange. It's actually red and yellow and orange, but mostly orange. And John's kayak's got a yellow bottom and a blue top, so they're both stick out pretty good in the water, and they're both, really visible. So if you're out in the water, be safe, and then you can sit there and make videos like this and tell everybody about your adventure. and hopefully they'll learn something from it, and they'll be safe on the water. So happy kayaking, and maybe I'll see you out on the water someday.